Daryl Cady is the CEO of Hospice of Southern Maine, and she's joining us today for a conversation about the Thresholds Conference featuring Elizabeth Gilbert and Michelle Zauner. You're listening to Heartbeat from the Heart of Hospice. I'm Helen Bauer, here with Jerry Fenter.
Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, we're here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care. And because we know how busy life can get, Heartbeat is designed to give you helpful information in a bite-sized format. We are so glad to have Daryl Cady with us today. She's the CEO of Hospice of Southern Maine, and Hospice of Southern Maine is, again, sponsoring the Thresholds Conference. Now, last year, they had B.J. Miller and our friend Barbara Carnes as their featured speakers. Well, this year, they have two more that are going to be amazing.
I won't say it's better. Let's just say it's just as good, awesome, and such a great opportunity. All remote, so it's all virtual, and the tickets are only $35. You can't beat it.
Absolutely. So, Daryl, we're very glad to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So let's talk about the Thresholds Conference. We actually attended our first Thresholds Conference last year, and we're just blown away by the quality and the excellence of it. And it sounds like this year's Threshold Conference is just going to be even better than last year's. So tell us more about the speakers that are going to be featured on this year's Thresholds Conference.
Sure, I would be happy to. The topic of this year's conference is grief, and the title is Grief is Individual and Universal. We think this title in the program will resonate with lots of people because while grief is universal and universally recognizable as something we all experience at some point in our lives, it's also very personal, and it's a personal experience that each person moves through in their own unique way. So this year, we're fortunate to have two big headliners who are both authors and who have both experienced the loss of a significant person in their lives. But their stories are very different and unique in their own way. So the first person is Elizabeth Gilbert, and she is best known for her 2006 memoir, Eat, Pray, Love, where she chronicles her journey alone around the world looking for solace after a difficult divorce. And I think most of us know that that book was later made into a movie. And she has authored many other books as well. But the reason that she's our Thresholds Conference speaker this year is because her partner, Rhea Elias, was diagnosed with a terminal illness and later died on hospice care. And Elizabeth has shared this experience publicly, and we're excited to have her on Zoom with us to share her thoughts on that experience and answer audience questions. And our other guest speaker is Michelle Zauner. And she has recently come out with her first book, which is titled Crying in H Mart. It's a New York Times bestseller that's also being adapted for the screen. And Michelle is young. She's 33 now, but her mother died when Michelle was just 25. And her new book is a powerful memoir about growing up a Korean American and losing her mother and then forging her own identity. And it's a rich book with vivid descriptions of sights and sounds and her feelings, but mostly it's a book about Korean foods that she grew up with and that connected her so deeply with her mother and her heritage. If her name is familiar to some of your listeners, it may be because she also is the lead singer and a guitarist in an indie pop band called Japanese Breakfast, which was twice nominated for a Grammy. So for us, Michelle will read passages from her book. And again, she will also answer questions from the audience. So we're very excited that they'll both be sharing their unique journeys with us. And we also know that there's no right way to grieve, and sharing different experiences, which these two speakers have and their perspectives, is a helpful way for us to underscore that whatever someone's grieving process looks like, it's theirs. It's not good, it's not bad, right or wrong, it's simply theirs.
This is going to be so interesting. I think it's really powerful that Elizabeth Gilbert will be a part of this. Obviously, her movie, or the movie from her book, Eat, Pray, Love, was one that people talked about it a lot, and it really resonated with many, many people. So I think her story, her grief story, if you will also resonate with a lot of people. And like you say, everybody's grief is different, and yet what I've also found is that people also say, oh, that's just how I feel. I went through that. I experienced that as well. And so it helps to hear other people's stories. And so someone like Elizabeth Gilbert, and also for Michelle Zauner, people will come away from both of those stories going, I understand, and to really validate their own grief.
I love that Elizabeth's and her partner Rhea's hospice experience was unique and a little unconventional. As we said earlier, truly everyone's experience is different. And during such a time of uncertainty right now, I think her message will, as you said, Jerry, resonate with all of us. Elizabeth was pretty open about Rhea's illness and death. And when Rhea died, Elizabeth posted very publicly on social media. And subsequently, she's been on The Moth and in USA Today and elsewhere describing the experience. She actually called Rhea my completely impossible non-cooperator. And, and that was apparently how Rhea went into hospice, kicking and screaming. But Elizabeth also said that hospice brought professionalism, compassion, and a sense of security in a time of deep insecurity. She has said that for Rhea, the priority was not a longer life, but as good a life as possible for as long as possible. And that enormous pain and suffering was not something that Rhea was willing to sign up for. So, as you alluded to, everyone approaches their death and the death of a loved one differently. And that's where the hospice team can really excel, supporting with not just the physical and medical needs, but also the emotional, social, psychosocial needs along the way. I watched a video where Elizabeth was talking about Rhea's end-of-life journey. And she said Rhea told her there are two kinds of people, living and dead. And Rhea was going to live until the end. And I remember hearing something about Elizabeth buying all organic food for Rhea, and Rhea just wanting to eat Oreos and watch football.
Right.
And I thought, that's my kind of person. She told Elizabeth that Elizabeth, didn't get to write the script. And Rhea just wanted Elizabeth to love her, not do it for her. And that's all really powerful stuff. But it can also be hard for the caregiver who has a plan for their loved one and who wants to help you and take care of you. But really, they have to let their loved one do it their own way. So, we have a saying in hospice that people often die the way they lived. And I think that is certainly true in this case.
And what a message to really talk about commonality. I think that's a message that a lot of people, whether they're hospice professionals or unpaid caregivers for a family member, I think that's a message that they can really relate to, because we do try to manage, right? It's about hope and it's about thriving. So we want you to eat a certain way and don't eat the bacon and stay away from the Oreos, when in fact, that's not going to impact anything. And if that's what gives quality of life, then that's what you go for. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that time when when my time comes and I'm on hospice, that I can eat the Oreos. If that's right. What I want to eat. I want to eat what I want to eat, because it doesn't matter at that point. So tell us more about Michelle, please.
Yes. So Michelle Zauner, she, of course, is the author of Crying in H Mart. Her book is amazing and so relatable for others that have gone through a significant death. She is such a good writer and a storyteller that even people who haven't had a loved one die can be drawn into the kind of the ups and downs, the hopes and fears, and ultimately deep sadness that she experienced. She talks about climbing out of grief and searching for pieces of herself. So anyone who's experienced a loss can completely understand those phrases. She was a clear choice for us for two reasons in particular. One, she is young, and we want thresholds to be relevant for people of all ages. Many young people experience the loss of a parent, and we know that talking and writing about the experience and your feelings is healthy and helpful. And she's really the poster child for this. And we hope that she will bring more young people into the conversation. Secondly, she and her mom shared the love language of food, and more specifically, Korean food. Even during challenging periods of their relationship, they shared a love of special Korean dishes. And kind of this is the medium for her grief and recovery as well. So, I won't spoil it for people who haven't read the book yet or for listeners. But one of the things that she asks in the book is, am I even Korean anymore if there's no one left to call and ask which brand of seaweed we used to buy? So again, another powerful statement.
A very important message as far as culture goes.
Yes.
Yes. And that's something I think we undervalue that in hospice as hospice professionals, as hospice providers. So what a great message for us to hear.
Mm-hmm.
These two speakers are going to be awesome. So tell us who would really benefit from attending the Thresholds Conference.
Sure. So really anyone can benefit from attending the conference because grief is something that most of us experience at some point in our lives. And I think during the past 2 years of COVID, there has been this collective cumulative grief, if you will, from all those who have been ill and died. And, we've seen it, maybe not in person, but we know it's happened and it's out there. And we've just all felt this heaviness. And then there have been other types of loss as well, like not being able to gather for funerals or even just not being able to travel to see family and friends, and then everything that kind of fits in between all of that. That said, this year's Threshold Conference is, of course, for anyone in the general public and every kind of healthcare provider, but so many other professionals as well, from faith leaders to funeral planners, guardians, estate lawyers, and everyone, again, in between that.
Wonderful. So tell our listeners how they can snag their spot for the Thresholds Conference.
Sure. Tickets are $35 and available online at thresholdshsm.org. The event is virtual. It's taking place on Zoom on Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And they may also call for more information at 207-289-3640.
Well, I'll have a link in the show notes to all those different sites so our listeners can go straight to it and get their ticket for the Thresholds Conference.
Fantastic.
Daryl, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and sharing all this information. We really want to encourage our listeners to take advantage of this because you can't beat the price.
No, you can't.
You just can't beat the price of the Thresholds Conference. For $35, you're going to get a lot of good information and just some inspiration as well.
Yes, it's going to be wonderful. We have, again, the two fantastic speakers, and we also will be having some additional information, 2 short educational segments from 2 of our bereavement counselors, and then a couple of short documentary style video clips featuring employees' insights on grief and loss.
Perfect.
That is awesome.
Perfect.
Well, Daryl, thank you so much for spending this time with us today.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Heartbeat from the Heart of Hospice. I'm Jerry Finter here with Helen Ballard. Because we know your hospice journey is 24/7, you can always find us at theheartofhospice.com. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening and leave a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts.
To connect with us, you can send an email to host@theheartofhospice.com. You can always find us on social media. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.